All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube version of my homily for Christ the King Sunday, uploaded a little late this week. We were hoping to get an appropriate video from Mass itself, and that didn't quite work out. So here I am back on Plan A for at least a little while longer. So here we are, the end of Ordinary Time, Christ the King of the Universe Sunday. Very fine occasion. Christ is king. He's in charge. The buck stops there. And I want to start by sharing with y'all a little story. See, a couple of years ago, someone I knew went to prison, and he wanted me to visit. He was going to prison in my area. So I did, and one thing led to another, and I ended up celebrating Mass for the Catholic inmates of that prison about once a month. And the woman that, kind of got me into the system and all of that was the Christian chaplain of the prison. The prison actually happened to have two chaplains, a Christian and a Muslim. They had enough Muslim inmates to justify their own chaplain. So I was very impressed that the institution, gave the Muslims their own dedicated chaplain. I thought that was pretty classy of them. Anyway, so this woman was a Lutheran of some sort of synod. I don't remember which one, if she belonged to an official synod. But she was very cool. We had a number of pleasant talks before she moved on to another assignment and then was replaced by another Christian chaplain. And there was just one thing. There's one thing she said that she just stopped me in my tracks. See, she belonged to a church, but she said that she regularly went and worshipped in a number of different denominations on Sundays. She liked to church hop, and there's nothing wrong with that. So she said, one year I made the mistake of going to a Catholic Mass for Christ the King Sunday, and it just made me very uncomfortable with all that king talk. At my church, we're getting rid of all the king references and symbolism. It's problematic. Now, I was polite in that moment, aside from an involuntary eye twitch, but I did that thing driving home that men do when we're mad. I talk to myself, repeating the same thing over and over again. So I'm driving home, I'm just thinking, she said it was problematic. Half the Bible is problematic. Oh, I gotta turn left here. I gotta take this all the way to 33. Okay. Problematic. It bugged me. Her stance on the matter wasn't great in that moment, and now that it's been a couple of years, time has not sweetened it. Christ is king. It is in the Bible. Gospel of John, Book of Revelation, letter to the Ephesians, letter to Timothy, second letter of Peter. And that's in addition to all of the references of God the Father being king, not to mention the kingdom of heaven. So I'm telling you, if you've got a problem with kings, get out the good scissors, because you have a lot of the Bible to cut out and throw away. One thing I said for All Saints' Day, and I meant it, as Catholics, we do not erase history. We remember, celebrate, and learn from history. And as modern-day Catholics, we are obviously not calling for the dissolution of democracy for us to establish a literal king of the United States. That would be insane for a number of reasons. But kings are a major part of our history of Western civilization. So you might as well say that Christ used rice cakes at the Last Supper because bread is problematic to some people, and the wine was made with locally sourced non-GMO ingredients. Fair trade. There's a reason we don't talk like that. Christ is king. And the point I'm getting at for these last couple of minutes of my homily is, we have kings in our collective history / cultural memory. For a massive amount of our time, of our history, kings were the de facto big decision makers. They were the very model of ultimate human authority. So talk about larger-than-life figures. And kings were not just remarkably powerful people who didn't need to share their power. Ordinary people viewed their king as their protector. He was the one that would take the army and go to war in defense of the people and the land. People, ordinary people, generally did not have a very strong ability to defend themselves. They needed the king and the army to fight their battles for them. The king was the protector of the people. So yes, we have to ignore all the kings that didn't measure up to the task. I'm fully aware there are a ton of bad kings in history. I get that. But nevertheless, protecting the people is something a king was supposed to do. It's in the job description. Protect the land and its people. Kings have responsibility, which come with their authority. So with all of that in mind, I've got to remind you what divine revelation is. It's God revealing himself to us, sharing himself with us in a way that we can understand and appreciate. That's what the burning bush was all about. The 10 Commandments, the words of the prophets, Jesus Christ himself. It's all divine revelation. It's God's free will, God's free gift to us, God's free gift of himself to us, that is, lowered down to our level where we can actually understand what he's talking about. God describes himself as king in his heavenly realm as the kingdom of heaven because he is true authority. He is the source of all authority, and in the end, every living thing will answer to him. For human beings, we call that the final judgment. And this is why calling Christ the King is such an appropriate analogy. You will stand before the king and you will give your report. You don't argue back with the king. You do not get to appeal his decision to some kind of heavenly supreme court. That doesn't exist. The king's decision is final. When you stand before Christ at the final judgment, that's it. You are standing before divine authority itself. So there's something that kids learn, because, for the most part, kids have two parents. They have two authority figures, more or less of equal authority. And kids learn something pretty rapidly about having two different sources of authority in their lives. Dad, can I have this thing that I want? No, son. Mom, can I have this thing that I want? Oh, of course you can, sweetie. Practically every kid tries that. That's not going to work with God. We have one ultimate authority, so we should take him seriously. We should be ready to give the best report we possibly can when we stand before the king. But also, we need to be joyful that we have him as the king and the protector of our lives and our souls. The forces of evil will not overcome him. And it is far better to belong to his kingdom than any other. So, for our last Green Day, let's be appreciative of Christ our King. We belong to him, the ultimate authority of heaven and earth, the King of heaven and earth. And if we truly run to him for protection and strength, there is no enemy that can overcome him. Long live the King.